So we are getting a Lord of the Rings anime coming to theaters. Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, directed by Kenji Kamiyama. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He has done a number of animes before, so I have, a decent amount of faith that this will be a decent addition to the Lord of the Rings property. Probably, honestly, since it's an anime, I have more faith in this movie than the Amazon TV show. But it's going to cover the history of Helm's Deep and kind of give you some, background of Helm's Deep and, Rohan and the Rohirrim in general. And it's going to be anime, which I didn't realize I wanted a Lord of the Rings anime until it was announced today. So I'm going to be giving you a little bit of, what we may be able to expect from this and what we know so far. So like I said, it's going to cover the history of Helm's Deep, and it takes place a couple hundred years before the Battle of Helm's Deep. So Rohirrim are the horse lords of Rohan. These are the people who occupy Rohan. These are like what they're known, like the warriors who ride the horses, more or less, the best soldiers that Rohan has to offer. Interestingly enough, in the Second Age, which is when this movie would take place, Aragorn rode with the Rohirrim before the War of the Ring, but he went under the name Thorngil. Aragorn had a number of aliases that he went by because he didn't want people to know that he was Aragorn, son of Arathorn, descendant of, or King Elisar II, so that he didn't want people to know that he was, the rightful leader of the people of Gondor. He wanted to keep that identity a secret. He even rode with Éomer at this time, and this is why in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, when they meet up, Éomer recognizes Aragorn because they have rode before, they have fought in battles. Aragorn has fought for Rohan in the past. Thorngil also means Eagle of the Star. That's kind of like a side note, or just kind of helping you understand, what we may be able to expect. Keep in mind, none of this is confirmed. This is just kind of what I'm assuming off of the present lore and history that we know off Lord of the Rings. And because it's also about Helm's Deep, I presume we're going to get a little bit more about Helm Hammerhand, which is what, Helm's Deep is obviously named after. He is the ninth king of Rohan, and during his rule, he went to war with the Dune Legends. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but the Wild Man of Dunland. We also see this in the Two Towers as well. And I think congruently at this time, the Corsairs of Umbar also team up with the Wildmen of Dunland, which are the pirates we see at the end of Return of the King. And Thorngil ends up defeating those Corsairs of Umbar. And this is what kind of, helps Aragorn unite, the race of men for what we know as Lord of the Rings. It is also interesting to note that over the course of Lord of the Rings history, or over the course of Middle-earth history, the land that is Rohan had many border disputes and land disputes. Like I said, the Wildmen of Dunland, I think in the Two Towers, Sauron says that these people stole your land, that they, removed you out of it, take back your land and stuff like that. The land of Rohan was also occupied by the people of Gondor at the time, which is where Thorngil or Aragorn would come in to, would come into play for all of this. But that's all I can really kind of give, or what I can, explain in terms of what I know just off the top of my head. I didn't really do a lot of research for this because, like I said, none of this stuff is confirmed, but I expected there to be a number of familiar characters. Like I said, Éomer rode with Thorngil, so I expect those two to make a return. And of course, Éomer is probably one of the only notable Rohirrim that we get to see in Lord of the Rings. King Theoden, I believe maybe at this time was alive. I don't really know too much about the history of King Theoden, but nonetheless, I'm going to start talking about what I want from this show. What I want from this movie. In my eyes, Helm's Deep is probably the best battle in Lord of the Rings. I love the battle for Helm's Deep, and I love, the background of it, and just the overall spectacle of it. So giving us a little bit more history about, explaining, everything that's going on behind the scenes, why people are fighting, why people are taking over lands, why Saruman is trying to have the Wildmen of Dunland reclaim their lands and stuff like that. I think hopefully this anime will help, if not even make the Lord of the Rings trilogy even better by explaining some of the background and just kind of enhancing the Lord of the Rings trilogy in small ways that help us know, understand, and appreciate the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the books and whatnot. I really hope if they get anyone from the original cast, like obviously Legolas is alive, he's an elf. Like I said, Thorngil is Aragorn. I really hope that they, and like I said, Éomer as well, I think should be in this as well. I really hope they get the original actors to come back as voice actors, and also expect a number of new characters as well. But my number one thing for Lord of the Rings, and I know I'm a little bit more of a Star Wars channel at this point, but I absolutely love Lord of the Rings. It's my first nerdy love, I would say, and I can hands down talk about Lord of the Rings the same way I talk about Star Wars, and I just really want it to just respect the lore. When Christopher Tolkien died, he handed over the estate, so that way more things could be added to the Lord of the Rings universe. And the best part is that none of it is canon. All of these TV shows, all these movies come out are not canon, and that's something I really appreciate in terms of Lord of the Rings, that the stuff written by the Tolkiens is sacred, and everything else at this point is kind of going to be the expanded universe of Lord of the Rings. But most importantly, just respect the lore. Make changes where you need to, add things where you need to, but just overall respect Lord of the Rings, because that's what's going to make it good. That's what people want out of Lord of the Rings as well. We want the big action scenes, we want the wars, we want the battles. But I think for the most part, people who really appreciate and love Lord of the Rings want Lord of the Rings to be authentic, and that's what makes the original trilogy absolutely a masterpiece, is that it does exactly what I just said, where it respects the lore and changes it in good ways and adds things and adds new characters and just overall respects the lore. I also kind of expect us to, be getting a little bit more information about Sauron and, his corruption over, not Sauron, Saruman and his corruption over time, how he falls under the spell of Sauron, and how he also twists King Theoden, and how the Westfold falls and stuff like that. I expect small stuff in terms of that, but like I said, we really don't know what this show is going to be about, but all we know is that it is about the history of Helm's Deep. Now, because this is an anime, I'm super excited to see an anime Lord of the Rings, in all honesty, and I really want to see I honestly would like to see a really awesome redesigned Helm's Deep in anime, and just the opportunities they have with an anime with Lord of the Rings. This could blow us away, or this could be potentially one of the worst things ever if not executed correctly. But Kenji Kamiyama has done numerous animes before. I didn't really do too much research into what he did, but I know that he has done animes, and as long as he respects the lore of Lord of the Rings and gives us awesome battle scenes and gives us just a spectacle, I don't see how this could go wrong. Like I said, I didn't realize I wanted anime Lord of the Rings up until this was announced today. But who knows? It's exciting that we're getting more Lord of the Rings content, and it's exciting that we're going to get to see this stuff in theaters as well. And anime coming to theaters is also pretty cool. I can't really think of anything in recent memory in terms of an anime that has such a big name behind it. Lord of the Rings and anime coming together. Just please be good. Just please respect the lore, and just, like I said, just make it a spectacle. But that's what I expect. That's what you can maybe expect from this Lord of the Rings anime, The War of the Rohirrim. We'll maybe get to see some original trilogy characters from the Tolkien universe in Middle-earth. But I'm overall excited for this, and I can't wait to see the trailer and the art style that they choose for this. I really hope they nail it down with the music. If I think Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack for Lord of the Rings. If they can consult Peter Jackson, and stuff like that, and just like I said, the opportunities they have with an anime in Lord of the Rings, it's something that I just really want to be good. And with that, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, coming to theaters. I don't know when. I didn't look that up, but I'm excited. I want to see it. Can't wait to see what the art style is. Expect Aragorn to be Thorngil. Expect to see Eomer. Expect to see the Wildmen of Dunland. Expect to see Corsairs of Umbar. And expect to get a lot more background about Middle-earth and the histories of men with this movie. Until next video, goodbye.